Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
You have to run to stay in front. Welcome.
Unfiltered, only on Past the Wire TV. Thanks for watching.
Here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator exclusively on DRF Bets.
If your reaction to this year's Kentucky Derby was who, what, where, who is that? Don't worry about it. You're not alone. Check out this reaction courtesy of Hang from Chantal Sutherland in the jockey room at Gulfstream Park during the Kentucky.
Oh my God, he's gonna win it!
Come on, Flavin.
He's through. Oh my God, he's gonna win.
Come on, Flavin. Come on, Flavin.
Oh my God.
Come on, Flavin.
Wow, come on, Flavin.
Come on, Flavin.
Oh, he's got to get there.
Come on, Flavin.
Come on, Flavian. Oh, no, my
Come on,
God.
Flavin. Oh, second. Oh,
no way. Wow.
Happy Jack 31.
Bejarano.
Bejarano con Dogonil.
No way.
No. Oh, ganó dos, vale. It was 21. No, it wasn't number 2. It was 21, right?
Oh, it's 21.
Yeah, it's 21.
Yeah, the jockey's from Venezuela, Sonny Leon.
No way. I don't even know who they are.
The jockey's from Venezuela, Sonny Leon.
No way.
Oh my God.
Wow. I thought that was 2. It's 21. That's great to Venezuela. What a great year for Venezuela. That's amazing.
Yeah, and paisano, ¿tú no quieres otro?
But also that horse was also eligible. He just must have got in the race. He was also eligible.
It's a real road, got scratched.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
3.
Are you sure?
Yes. He's coming. I think he come from Thorway Park. Racing in synthetic, Tapira.
So was he not supposed to be in the race?
No, he was on the also eligibles, and someone must have scratched, and he got in at the last minute. I think he's the only horse that ever won from the 21 post.
Well, I think Chantal Sutherland was as surprised as most people were about the results of the Kentucky Derby. We had her from the jockey room at Gulfstream Park. her and the gentleman she was watching with were really surprised. They weren't even sure who it was. They thought it was the 2 and Rafael Bejarano at first. And then they realized it was actually the 21 who drew in off the also eligibles.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I had the same reaction. I said, you know, Dominique and I are going back and down the stretch and saying, oh, Zandon Epicenter, Zandon. And we're like, whoa, what's this thing coming up the rail, you know, at the 8th pole? And you're like, this horse might get there. And I think it was the exact same reaction, you know, I had with Mind That Bird is, who the heck is this? I
actually needed Zandon for a lot of money, just shy of about 50,000. Okay, it's a nice hit, you know. So I, you know, I was watching him, and really, I thought he had a little trouble out of the gate. He kind of got bounced around, but I was really glad because I think Flavien Prat handled it expertly. He made the trouble that he had not really cost him anything. He just adjusted, adapted, and then after that, you know, by the time they hit the clubhouse turn, the first turn, he got him a perfect trip, and he was sitting behind Epicenter down the backside, and Epicenter, Joel was chirping at him, okay, and asking him to keep up, where Flavien was just sitting behind him, following him with what I thought was a ton of horse. And I was like, I'm going to win unless somebody really runs big. And then when they went around the turn and he stayed right behind him, I'm like, he's doing exactly what I want. It's just stay cool, stay there. They get tired, they drift. It's going to open up. And then he didn't. He kind of angled out and got the seam and got through. And I'm like, okay, he made his move. I'm going to get up. And then I saw he just couldn't get past Epicenter. And then by the 3/16 pole, coming up to the 8th pole, I could see he was tired. And then Rosario did a perfect thing. What he did was he just drifted out that little bit, like a good rider will do, to lay on him a little bit. And when a horse is tired, you know it better than I as a trainer. When you do that to a horse tired going 1.25 miles for the first time, he's not going to go past you 99 out of 100 times. And that's exactly what Rosario did. And Zandon couldn't get past him. So I'm watching, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be second. And then I had a Mind That Bird moment, because when Mind That Bird come up the rail with Calvin, when I was looking at my post saying, who, what? And same thing. I'm like, who? That horse won? And, you know, it is what it is. You know, I always say in the Kentucky Derby, the pace and the trip determines the winner. And he got both in his favor.
Right.
The pace and the trip helped him considerably. You know, what could you say? Any first Saturday in May, you know, anything can happen. And it does. It's streaky. You know, every couple of years you get one of these flukes in the Kentucky Derby. You know, not to disparage or take anything away from the horse. He ran a huge race. I think that he didn't look as bad as some people are saying. Like some people saying, oh, he should have been 200 to 1. No, I think he was around the right price that he should have been. He looked like the kind of horse that was probably too slow to win. But, you know, from a handicapping perspective, really, when you see a pace break down and, you know, that fast early going 1.25 miles and that happened, you know, you're not really too slow to win anymore. You know, things change and they propel those closers. And you know, Sonny Leon rode an excellent race. He saved ground. He got over from that wide post. You know, I think when he made the move to go around Messier, a lot of people were saying, oh, no big deal. He just, you know, did what any rider would do. I disagree with that. I think he made a heads up move on the fly, spur of the moment. A lot of guys would have checked. A lot of guys without experience in the Derby would have panicked. A lot of guys might have tried to go inside. A lot of guys might have not known what to do in that second. And he immediately knew what to do. He took his horse outside of Messier and went on and won the race. And I think that was a heads up, well-played move by Sonny Leon. And I tip my hat to him for, you know, doing what, you know, I mean, he's a professional rider. He's in the Derby. He's supposed to do that, but not everybody does. You know, when you're in the situation and in the spur of the moment,
yeah, no, a lot of people hesitate and second guess. And I mean, you know, it's interesting as you watched him, he just threaded the needle. And, you know, there was a moment where he did get caught up with Messier wanting to back up. And, you know, he had to make a choice. And you could see, I mean, the horse's head is hung right just to try and get him to come out from behind him. And then he weaved that and he kept kicking on. And, you know, it was, I think any other jockey, the horse doesn't win. I think it was the perfect situation, perfect move for them. He obviously knows the horse, understood it. And, it's interesting with what NBC said before the race. And we used to see this years ago, John, in the Derby, when they didn't have the point system, right? Where it was graded stakes earnings. Right. And you'd have these sprinters show up, right? Every now and again, you'd have a sprinter go in the Derby and you'd have these ridiculous paces that would just set it up for closers. And it was interesting how they said, more recently, since the point system's been instituted, you have horses laying no further back than third winning the race. That was the stat that they were giving out during their statistical analysis. But here we see two horses shipping in, one from Dubai and one from Japan. And they set it up perfectly for closers. It was almost like, I don't know if there was a time delay on the TV, but first it's like 21:45, like it just clicked over. I said, Jesus, they went 21 and then 45. I mean, this is nuts. And seeing where Epicenter and Zen were sitting, they were in great spots. But, here I am watching my picks and I'm thinking, God, they're a little close to that freaking pace. It'll be interesting to see who can stay on. And I mean, to Crown Pride's credit, the horse still hung in there. I mean, you look at where Summers Tomorrow is and you look at where, Crown Pride finished in the race. For a horse that went that fast that early, I mean, he hung, as best he could. So,
well, what can you say? Pace is so important in a race like that, especially. I thought that it was interesting. Just the comments and the feedback that you hear. I said something on social media, a little bit tongue in cheek, but not really what I would consider an off the wall statement. But, people just come out with these like crazy opinions. I said, if Lucas doesn't scratch, Steve Asmussen probably gets his win,
Yeah.
And oh no, the whole race would have been different. And then I said, look, calm down. I was tongue in cheek. I was only just making a comment, but you get these people come out. I mean, the opinions are just, one of the funniest things about the times we live in that I find is that people lock into their opinion. And once they do, doesn't change, doesn't matter. Like the people that say you got to be on the lead to win the Derby, they're still saying it. They're saying, oh no, those horses were 1-2 turning for home. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I look at the first three finishes were closers. I don't care where they were turning for home. They were closers in my opinion. Okay.
Right.
So to me, closers can win the Kentucky Derby if they go fast enough early. Even if they don't go fast enough early, you never know what could happen. But
I mean, Churchill,
nobody's wrong. Nobody's wrong. If you believe speed's got to be speed, then you'll find a way to say that was speed that won. I mean, just sign of the times. Sign of the times.
Right.
But I think it was an interesting race. I think Steve Asmussen did his job perfectly. His horse had more in the tank. I was not expecting that. Epicenter outran what I thought he could do. And I think Thad Brown brought his horse to the race expertly as well. Zandon was ready to move forward, was ready to do what he had to do. And, he was just third best that day. But I think it was a really good race. I think Taiba was a disappointment, but understandably so, based on the lack of experience, only 2 races, getting thrown to the wolves like that.
Well, I think also maybe lack of mileage too, and that's something where I asked Johnny on that show that we quickly did was, I think you have to have a certain amount of miles under your belt to go 1.25 miles. And, so it's interesting seeing Yakteen, which I think is a smart move, right? We're probably going Preakness with him. He got fit in the Derby. Let's roll in the Preakness and continue onwards. So
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I think that, in my opinion, is going to be the most interesting segment on this show, is because what I want to delve into is you're a trainer.
Yeah.
Right? And you are a trainer. So, but hypothetically, you're a trainer. Yeah. What do you look for in a horse during these next 2 weeks that make you decide to go to the Derby, go to the Preakness from the Derby, not go? If you're a new shooter, as they like to say, what do you do with that? I'm very curious to get, a trainer's perspective on what you look for and what you do. Do you take it easy with your horse? Do you push him? But we'll finish wrapping up the Derby and then we'll get.
Yeah, for sure.
There was another incident after the Derby.
Yeah.
Okay, that we can
Yeah.
talk
A
about.
little bit. It's all over the place.
Everybody's got an opinion on that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially people who don't know horses, making their opinions of it, which, I mean, again, we need to have maybe a little bit better color commentary on TV to where in those moments, somebody can talk to exactly what's going on so the public is informed versus having time to make up their own opinions on it. But
yeah. True. And, maybe it's not the best idea to focus so much on that after race interview in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, I know it's great, but I think they can maybe wait till the rider gets back and maybe dismounts and do it in a little bit more sense, because those horses are really keyed up. They just ran 1.25 miles for the first time, usually, if not always. And I think it might play better for everybody involved if the main focus was just to get that horse back, safely and calm down, as opposed to the interview.
Well, and it's interesting
like to capture those moments, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because the dirt, in most situations, the outrider wouldn't even be involved. Most races, the jockey gallops the horse back on their own. And so, it's they gallop back on their own. Their groom picks them up. The horse is unsaddled right there. And so, this is the first race, and sometimes, it's rare. I mean, especially for these 3-year-olds, they're getting grabbed by an outrider after a race to talk to and slow down. And, you're going from zero
to, exactly what his trainer said. His trainer said, he's still thinking he's racing. He wants to pass that other horse, and this guy's holding him back. So he did go to savage the pony, and he did take a nice bite out of the outrider, his arm and leg.
Yeah.
And you've been bit. I'm sure you've been bit by horses.
Yeah. No, it's not fun.
Yeah, no, it's
especially really on a horseback. It's not fun. I played polo for a little bit. You teach polo ponies to bite riders, and when you're on the receiving end of it, it's not the most fun.
It's really a lot worse than people realize that have never been bitten by a horse. It's like you said, not fun. So, I mean, a lot of people are very critical of his actions, and I get it was a bad look. I understand that, but when you're in that spot and you're trying to stop a horse from savaging you,
I don't think it was so much the savaging, and I don't mean to cut you off, John. What was really going on was, which I don't think a lot of people saw, was the horse kept grabbing the rein of the pony, and the horse would bite the neck and then hang on to the rein and then jerk on the rein. And so it was actually a really dangerous situation. And if that horse pulls back, the pony flips over on the outrider, which then probably leads to the Kentucky Derby winner rearing up, dropping the jockey, and we have a loose horse. And so I think it wasn't so much of, when a horse bites you, you get flustered. But the situation really became, and he did it two times, at least 3, where he'd grab the rein of the pony and jerk on it and pull the pony's head back. And you saw there was one instance where the pony half reared up because this horse still had the rein in his mouth and was pulling on the rein. So all the pony felt was getting pulled on the right rein. The rider's trying to hold him with the left rein to keep him, from getting turned into this horse. And that's where the situation was, oh my gosh, I'm fearing for my life. This horse is going to flip me over on my pony. Not so much of he's savaging me. I've been bit. I've been, in situations with stallions that aren't comfortable. But when you're on the back of a horse and all you can think about is this pony could flip over on me, you pretty much are in life and death mentality of, I got to get myself out of this, extricated from this situation. So personally, if I was the outrider, I would just turn the horse loose and say, jockey, he's yours. You take him back to the winner's circle on your own, and not to be critical. Sometimes this happens after races with jockeys. As soon as a pony grabs them, they drop the reins. Right. So if you watch Sonny Leon, there are very limited instances where he tries to help pull his horse off the pony. So it's literally the outrider trying to, deal with this horse while riding his pony, who's obviously upset from the fact that he's A, getting bit, and B, getting pulled over because the other horse has the rein in the mouth. So, yeah.
Interesting footnote to that whole scenario. Steve Asmussen, we know it was 0 for, I guess, 23 going into the Derby, was now 0 for 24. The outrider is his assistant's brother, which I thought was an interesting footnote to the whole situation. So but I agree with you. I think that my first reaction would have been to tell the rider, heads up, I'm going to just turn him loose, so we're all okay here, and I think that would have been the best solution to that problem. But who knows what he was thinking and why he didn't do that, or what him and the rider were communicating to each other at that time. It's easy to criticize and critique from afar. I did think it was a bad look, obviously, as did many other people, but I won't go far as to, pass judgment on a situation that I don't really understand and I'm seeing on television.
And you might understand this better, and maybe people would understand this a lot better. So you're at a dog park and a dog attacks your dog and a dog fight ensues. And so I've been in these instances where I've had dogs not let go of my dog and have my dog by the scruff of the neck. And you can try and call the dog off. You can try and get the dog off in other ways, but literally you have to snap their mind out of it. And when these horses get into that type of situation, especially colts, you're literally just trying to get them to change their mind and get their mind off of what they're doing and redirect it into a different direction. So sometimes what some people don't necessarily understand, and I'm not one to promote hitting horses, but these are 1,300-pound animals that live in herds naturally. And when you're in a herd, if a horse was to bite another horse, that horse would then kick that horse for the unwanted behavior. So there are certain things, and to the eye, it might look different, but for a he's probably maybe 200-pound guy. There's only so much you can do when you have a 1,200-pound horse on the end of a rein. And if you go back to what their natural environment is, they bite each other, they kick each other, full-blown, 1,200-pound horse to 1,200-pound horse. And that's natural in their natural environment. So, it's the same thing with Cesar Millan trying to teach dogs. Sometimes you just have to get an animal to snap out of it. And it doesn't look pretty on TV, but it's part of just, if you're in that fear mentality of you could flip over, you kind of have to get the horse to stop.
I understand that. I can't, under any circumstances, get myself to condone hitting an animal unless it was in an attack situation, like with one of my dogs or my small dogs or something like that. But I'm super careful to avoid those kind of situations and don't go to dog parks and places like that just for those reasons. I think a lot of people do misunderstand the situation and what was going on. So I'm glad you can bring some, clarity to that. One of the things like I said, I really want to explore with you is the 2 weeks from the Derby to the Preakness. Okay. These horses run 1.25 miles the first Saturday in May. Often, if not always, like I said earlier, it's the first time they've ever gone that far. Now you've got a couple of preps that are 1 mile and 3/16. That's only a 16 shorter, but 1.25 miles that early in a 3-year-old career is a stressful thing. Okay.
Right.
Coming back in 2 weeks is tough under any circumstances, even for older horses. I mean, used to be, you can come back on 3, 4, 5 days rest. That's a rarity now. I mean, people will do it, but it's a rarity.
Right.
2 weeks is also a rarity nowadays,
Right.
But we asked these 3-year-olds to do it. So we know it's challenging. Okay. As a trainer, what do you do? I want 2 scenarios. I want one, you're a new shooter, you're coming in. How do you get an edge over the horses that ran in the Derby? And if you ran in the Derby, what do you do and look for in these 2 weeks? And let's start with that. Let's start with the horses that ran in the Kentucky Derby. Okay. You're a trainer, you ran in the Kentucky Derby. Your horse comes back tired. I don't know. Well, first, let me ask a silly question. Does any horse not come back tired from the Derby?
I think most do. I mean, you give it, but as with any race, you give them a couple days off. Depends on the trainer, depends on the barn, depends on the horse. So,
but bear with me. Let me play this out. horses come back, when they come back from the Derby, they're blowing and they're tired.
Oh,
Okay,
for
but
sure. Except the winner. Somehow he still had enough energy to go after a pony, so I don't think he was tired at all. But most horses, yeah.
Like Joe Namath said it best: when you win, nothing hurts.
Yeah, yeah.
So they come back tired. Now,
yeah.
What do you look for as a trainer? Okay, to say, hey, my horse is bouncing back. I'm going to be able to make the Preakness. And what do? You know, you just put everything into trying to peak on that first Saturday in May. And maybe you didn't win, okay, but you ran good. But now you want to win the Preakness. You ran good enough to move on. You're not folding your cards. What do you do to now make him run a little better, turn the tables, improve, when you got a horse that's only got 2 weeks and he come back tired? You know, so that, to me, that's a challenging thing.
Yeah.
But it's not an insurmountable thing, because a lot of horses that don't win the Derby come back and win the Preakness.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about those 2 weeks and what goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, the Derby is a taxing race for sure on any horse. And, you know, most of the time, and it's not just taxing physically, it's taxing mentally, but you have a lot more things happening in a 20 horse field that you wouldn't. So I texted a trainer the other day and said, how'd your horse come out? And he says, you know, besides the nicks, cuts, and grabs that you'd expect in the Kentucky Derby, you know, he's fine. And those are the things that don't necessarily happen in a normal race, where you'll get cut up on a back leg, or, you know, a horse might step on you, or some horse will grab a quarter in the race because he's in tight. So there's minor little things that pop up, you know, that you have to be careful of, that you have to take care of. But a lot of it, most of your work should have been done prior to the Derby. Okay. So now you're just coasting on fitness. So you were fit enough to perform on the day. All you need to do is recover in time to perform again. And you saw it with a lot of these horses that have gone on and won, you know, Derby Preakness. Usually they're just coasting in those 2 weeks. They might walk 2, 3, 4 days. They might go back to the track a couple jog days, gallop 2, 3 times, jog a couple more days, and then, you know, ready to go again in 2 weeks. And so that's typically the Triple Crown, how you have to look at it. And Steve Asmussen mentioned it with Epicenter in an interview, and he talked about, you know, they talked about how he won it with Curlin, and he won it with Rachel, and Curlin ran in the Derby and Rachel ran in the Oaks. So you're spacing the races to get them fit, but still have room if you need to continue onwards. And so it might come into effect on horses that didn't have proper spacing in between races, or who were run a little bit too close too quick. We didn't see it so much with back in the day when they'd run every 2 weeks, you know, they just keep ticking on. But you just give them a chance to recover, and most of them will. I mean, there's some horses that take a day, 2 days, 3 days, and they're back on their feet. They're dying to go back to the racetrack. So you're balancing what they need mentally and what they need physically to get them back on top for the, you know, the big day.
Let me ask you this. Should people read into whether or not a horse works in between the Derby and the Preakness or not? Now, we're going to have some horses come back that have worked in between and some that don't, okay? What should people read into that are trying to follow these horses?
A lot of breezes in between these races, right? So they just ran 1.25 miles, and they ran 1.25 miles, what? They went 2:02 and change, I think. It was like 2:02 and 3. So they ran at about a 12 clip. So when you're asking a horse to breeze a 1/2 mile in 48 or 5/8 in 101, you're literally just letting, what I used to term it is, you're letting a little air out of the tire, right? The horse is too full of themselves. Some trainers use it as a barometer to figure out, how's my horse doing? Physically, he might look good. You know, he might be eating everything. He might look great. Let me just let him work and make sure he's where I think he's at, and have a gauge there. The other is, gosh, he bounced out pretty quick. And to make sure he's not too high on Preakness day, I'm just going to let him do something just to calm him back down. And so some of those works are just breathers for the horses. You're not trying to get fitness. You're either gauging where they are, or you're using it to say, you know what, he's feeling pretty good, and he's going to be bouncing out of his skin and uncontrollable on race day if I don't let him do something. So that's usually the two scenarios. you're not trying to put in work to get them fit. They're fit, you know.
Gotcha. What would be some signs that would cause a guy or girl not to run back? Like you're planning on run back, your horse came back good, you know, you're ready to go. What might you see? And of course, I'm not talking about anything soundness related or injury related, obviously.
Right.
Then, you
Right.
know, but what might you see in a horse's behavior or in a way he breezes or something like that? They might say, you know what, maybe I'm coming back too soon. I need more time. And
They'll just be a little dull. They'll be a little bit off. You know, it's something where they might not carry the same energy level going into it. The one thing that we also have to remember with these horses is most of these horses, not all, but most, you know, we've got what, six different types of prep races, final preps into the Derby, right? Something like that. So you got 6 horses that have won their last race and a couple others that were pretty competitive, you know,
right.
second or third to get enough points to get in. And for many, this is their first time really getting their butt kicked. So some of them might be sulking a little bit of the fact that they lost. And part of that mental component coming into it is they might not just be dull because of they don't feel energetic. It might be that they're moping a little bit too. And a lot of people don't realize that these horses are very competitive. They know when they win, they know when they lose. And some horses take it on the chin and they get right back up and, you know, they're ready to get back at it the next day and compete again. Others don't. Others take a little bit of time. And sometimes you need to take a break and actually breeze them in company, let them win in the work to get their confidence back, to get them going in the right direction. And so that's also a component. So sometimes
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, I'm glad you mentioned that. What do you do when you have a horse that you know is competitive and he lost and he's sulking and you want to get that confidence level back? Okay. So let him win in the work. Is there anything else you can do? I mean, you can't talk to him.
No, I mean, a lot of it is just helping them get comfortable with themselves again. So you can put them in works with workmates where they're the superior horse. They'll know they're superior, whether they worked head and head to the wire or they got their nose in front of the wire. You know, because it's the same thing if let's say, John, I took you out on a jog with an Olympic runner and you ran the whole way with it and he let you stay with it. You still know that he let you stay with it, right? The other runner still knows he's faster and has another gear that he can turn on at any moment in time. Yes. These horses know that too. So when they have a workmate that's all out just to stay with them, they're getting confident because they're like, oh, this is easy for me. You know, right. You're really working to stay with me. I could blow you out of the water anytime I want. So there's working. Sometimes those works head and head help them. Sometimes I used to peel off horses by themselves. I would take them and have them breeze on their own. And I'd have them find themselves on their own and get that confidence up, get them feeling good. Then I might throw a workmate at them and let them kind of do what they need to do there. But especially with fillies, it's not so much with colts. Colts can have good days and bad days more than fillies do. I was a fillies guy. I liked fillies. I loved training fillies. Fillies were always more consistent, you know. For me personally, if you got their mind in the right direction, they always performed. Boys sometimes might take a day off at the office on race day. And then, you know, for no apparent reason. And then the next week they're fine. So with boys, it's just helping them feel like a man again, you know, helping them feel like they're the biggest guy on the block and putting them back in there when they're right. So yeah, I mean, sometimes 2 weeks, you know, you see it in races like the Melbourne Cup still. You used to see Melbourne Cup's on a Tuesday. There's a prep race for the Melbourne Cup on a Saturday. And, you know, they're running, I think it's 1.5 miles on the Saturday for the 2-mile race on the Tuesday. And most horses, I've seen a lot of horses come out of that 1.5 mile prep, win the 2-mile race 3 days later. So they recover quickly. It's not a necessarily physical recovery. It's more mental, you know, how quick do they get back in the game?
Interesting. That's really interesting. Do you think it's more advantageous as a trainer to have a horse that ran in the Derby running into the Preakness, or do you think it's more advantageous to come in as a fresh, like they like to say, new shooter and try and beat these horses that might be showing some wear from the Derby?
Well, I guess the question is, you're a handicapper, you watch a lot of races. How many of these horses that either win the Derby or ran the Derby, a lot of them continue on in the Preakness and do really well. Some of the new shooters fire, but a lot of them don't. And I think you're definitely at a fitness advantage. And I think you're probably definitely, unless you're a horse like Jack Christopher, who's just ultra talented, it's usually the better horses ran in the Derby. And so the new shooters are either horses peaking at different times, or they're maybe a cut below the Derby horses. And so they got to step up to face those horses. So I think you could look at it both ways. Every now and again, you find a new shooter come out of, Bernardini, right? He was another one. He'd be like a Jack Christopher. He was the best horse. Timing was off. But most of these horses that ran in the Derby, at least from a fitness perspective, are there. And then potentially from a competitive and ability perspective, we're already there anyway. So,
interesting thing about this year's Derby, Jack Christopher might have been the best 3-year-old that ran on Saturday, and he didn't run in the Derby, which I think is interesting. And Secret Oath, who ran super impressively in the Oaks on Friday, is considering the Black Eyed Susan or the Preakness.
Yeah.
What say you if you were training her?
I'd run her in the Preakness. I mean, I think Wayne said it right after the race. We've got nothing to lose. We won the Oaks. And I think they wanted to get the Oaks underneath their belt. She's now an Oaks winner. I don't see anything that could come up throughout the year with any of these other fillies. I mean, Ness could maybe go out and win 2-3 more grade ones, but I don't see Secret Oath not doing well, and I don't see Secret Oath potentially not being champion 3-year-old filly. So I don't think you lose anything, and I understand Wayne and him as a sportsman. But if I have a filly like that, and Secret Oath has always been a filly that I actually want to see run against the boys, and I think the Arkansas Derby just didn't work out for her. Jock moved way too soon. But she's built differently. And I said it on a show with ABR the other day that I think she's a Zenyatta Rachel Alexandra caliber type filly. And I think a lot of people don't look at her pedigree. She's by Arrogate, and Arrogate didn't come out and debut really on the scene until the Traverse is when he had his coming out party. So she's a big, leggy, scopy filly who looks like she wants to mature later. She's just good enough with a high enough cruising speed now and a devastating turn of foot that she's monstrous at the moment. But I think, and I actually worked with her mother, absent-minded, at Lucas's barn. Her mother was later maturing too. So her pedigree shows that they kind of want to be, she's going to get better as the year goes on. So I don't think, if you've got a filly built like her physically, I'd go against the boys, especially with her cruising speed and turn of foot. I think that's devastating in the Preakness.
You think that's what he'll do?
I hope. I don't know. If Wayne could do it, he'd do it, right? I mean, he has no problem running fillies against the boys, and I think
he win the Derby with a filly.
Exactly. I mean, he'd love to say, "Hey, look, I not only won the Kentucky Oaks at what is he? He's now 87, right? But I won the Preakness as well with the same filly, so I still got it."
Yeah. No, and it wasn't that long ago that he proved he still had it with Oxbow when everybody thought he was, 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on a banana peel, and he come and win with Oxbow, and now, he's right back in the limelight with another, potentially very special filly.
Well, and I think, the Arkansas Derby probably taught that filly a lot. And I think probably taught her a lot how to deal with adversity. And then she handled you can't take anything away from Ness. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal filly, but you're running up against something special. And that's where I look at it from a standpoint of, well, now I've got a filly that I know. I mean, I think this filly has the ability to go toe-to-toe with the older mares already. So I don't see a reason.
I do remember early in the year you telling me how special you thought she was when she was beating horses I didn't think much of that caliber anyway at Oakland Park earlier in the year.
Oh, I texted. It's funny. I want to take a screenshot of that text and send it back. So there was a couple owners looking to buy into fillies and try and buy into fillies. And after the Martha Washington, I said, look, you need to buy this filly because I think she's top 3 Derby. They said, what do you mean top 3 Derby? I said, she's way better than anything in the Oaks field, but she'd be top 3 Derby. And if she goes in the Derby, heck, you know, you might have something really valuable. Well, you know, nobody potentially listened. And, you know, now you're missing, the filly goes from a homebred who won what the race at Oaklawn that she won was a grade 3, right? Right. She won the grade 3 and then she ran the Arkansas Derby. So now she's probably worth $4 million. So she jumped from $500,000 to 400 million. I mean, not 400 million, 4 million. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Was she for sale? Were they looking to sell for a piece of her, or were you just trying to gonna approach and say?
I was just going to approach and say, hey guys, look, you know, can we piece in for anything? Right. You know, but sometimes
I will validate. I do remember when you told me that you were looking to do that, and I was like, I don't know. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm not as high on her as you are.
Yeah, I mean, every now and again you see a rare horse, and maybe it's just, you know, when somebody asked me the other day, we were talking about hours, and you know how they said it's 10,000 hours to mastery of a subject, right? I can't remember. It's Malcolm Gladwell says you need 10,000 hours to be a master at a subject. I mean, I got about, I don't even know how many times that in horse racing, and I couldn't pick the winner on Saturday. So that I disproved that theory right there. Well, anyways, I mean, I think I have 28,000 hours of watching horses go in circles. So, right. You know, eventually sometimes you spot athletes come out before they come out. So, yeah. I remember her father, I texted Dominique, and Dominique, she yells at me. She says, the text never went through. I walk in the paddock at the Traverse, and I see this big gray horse. I said, who the heck is this? And I text Dominique and said, this thing named Arrogant, I don't know who he is. He won a maiden. I said, bet him. Like, this thing looks like a monster. And then text didn't go through because everything going on Traverse Day. And then he did what he did in the Traverse, but.
Yeah, no, I remember he ran the fastest Traverse in the history of the race, or the fastest mile and a quarter at Saratoga, which is impressive because Saratoga is the kind of meet that it is, and the kind of horses that have run there for 100 years, you know. So yeah, no question about it. What do you think of the Derby winner's chances to run a good race in the Preakness, knowing that he's not at all going to get the kind of setup and circumstances that kind of propelled him in the Derby?
I mean, I personally think this might be a mind that bird type of year where, let's say Wayne says, I go in with the filly. I think Wayne could win it with the filly. And you know, then it's Derby winner wins, filly wins, and then, you know, whatever happens in the Belmont happens in the Belmont. I think the horse is good. I'm not going to take anything away from the Kentucky Derby, where I think he's good. I think the Preakness. I don't think
Find That Bird ever won a race after the Kentucky Derby.
No, I think he won. He ran okay in a couple starts.
He ran good in the Preakness.
Yeah, he ran second.
Right, he ran second. He ran good in the Preakness, but he didn't. I don't think off the top of my head that he ever won a race after that. And it would be an interesting deja vu all over again if Lucas runs in the Preakness and wins with the filly, and this horse runs second.
Yeah, I mean, I think the race, you and I both know, right? The Preakness is usually, unless you're, you know, what was it, Fleet Alex? What race did he go to his knees in? Was it the Preakness or the Belmont?
Yeah. Yeah, he got up and he almost fell down, got up and won.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a Fleet Alex, right? Most of this Preakness is usually won by stalkers or horses close to the front. It's rarely won by a horse that comes from behind. So, I mean, you'd have to have a significant pace. And now that you've taken, you know, and I asked Johnny, and I said, Johnny, what are you looking at kind of with these jockeys? You know, Christophe Lemaire is a great jockey. And, you know, you've got Mikel Barcelona, great jockey, but they don't ride in the United States. How difficult is that playing to the Kentucky Derby? Well, now you've pulled them out. So what I've been told before, and I don't want to be disparaging towards any riders. I know somebody who's very good in Europe, and he says European riders don't necessarily have a clock in their head like American riders. And so that's a bigger reason why they follow pace and then just judge how much horse they have to go. There's only a few that can really judge the pace. So now you pull those riders out because international horses are gone. You have people that can judge pace and judge how quick they're going. So I don't think he gets a suicidal pace that sets up for him. That's maybe he can lay closer and be effective from running closer. You know, there's probably more dimensions to this horse than we've seen, but seeing how he looked after the Derby and what they've said, I think this horse came out of the Derby like it was nothing. So
now I'm going to ask you this, and I'll offer my opinion on it, even though I'm not a trainer. Okay. If I was, and again, it could happen to anybody. I don't mean to, you know, throw shade at the guy because that's not my intent. But facts are facts. If I was Joe Sharp and I lost this horse for 30,000, and a guy takes the horse from me and wins the Kentucky Derby, I'm not happy. I'm kicking myself. What did I miss? How did I do this? How do I get that off my resume? I mean, come on. I lost a horse for 30 that won the Derby. I mean, Maximum Security ran for 16. Nobody took him. He won the Derby. All right, you kind of got over. I would be embarrassed over that.
yeah.
Okay. If I ran a horse for maiden 16 and he win, all right, I wouldn't try to tell anybody, well, I was taking a little edge that day and cheating a little bit. I knew nobody was going to take us. I ran it for 16. Okay. You may get somebody that wants to buy oceanfront property in Arizona to believe that. I ain't going to believe it. I would feel terrible if I ran a horse for 16 that won the Kentucky Derby. Even though I qualified and there's all that other Jason Service nonsense to have to deal with and wade through. I'm not going to.
Charismatic ran for 40. Remember?
Right. Charismatic ran for 40, no takers.
But I mean, Wayne said he had trouble.
Pincay didn't even take the call. Lafitte Pincay didn't even take the call to ride him in the Derby because he didn't think he was live. So that's how Chris Antley wound up with him. But that would bother me. But worse than that, the worst scenario is to lose a horse for 30 and he wins the Kentucky Derby while you're watching the race on television. That's a killer to me.
No, I think it is, but I think somebody must have had inside information on this horse.
It was an interesting claim. It was an interesting claim. And let me tell you, no pun intended, Joe Sharp is pretty sharp.
Yeah.
So it's not like, some guy that doesn't know what he's doing, ran a horse, had no idea what he had. Joe Sharp is a sharp trainer. He's not a novice by any stretch of the imagination. But he ran the horse for 30. He lost it, and the horse wins the Kentucky Derby. I mean, not much can make me not sleep at night. If I was that guy, I'd have a hard time sleeping. I'd be second guessing everything.
Well, I thought these were some interesting lines, right? So this horse, not just Joe Sharp putting him in for 30, Calumet bred him, right? So Calumet bred him and then puts him in for 30. And then their other horse, Happy Jack, is in the Derby against him. And so, it's actually, I find this semi-comical. So the horse is named Happy Jack after Jack Sisterson, or at least that's what NBC said.
That's what I heard.
Yet he's trained by Doug O'Neill. So you've got a private trainer in Jack Sisterson who trains your horses. You named a horse after him and sent it to a different trainer.
That is true. But I'm going to say this. I'll put this out there because I'm an old school guy and I could say what I want and what I think. To me, the Calumet of today, when people say it, is not the Calumet that I know.
No.
The Calumet that I know had the red and blue silks and had all of that line of great horses that went way, 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 way back. And that Guy Lundy, who I think is still in jail or may have just got out of jail, that was accused and probably did kill Alydar for the insurance money, bankrupted that poor farm and that poor woman who was the heir to that farm. And I think Henry D. Kwiatkowski bought it, Woody Stevens' old owner, the guy that owned all those great horses, Woody Stevens, Conquista do Cielo for a while. And then these new people got it and they changed the colors and they brought the farm back. And I think it's great that they brought the farm back.
Yes.
And kept the name. But it's not Calumet like the Calumet that the old guys like me knew. You're a young guy, so maybe you.
No, my dream has always been, and hopefully you can teach me how to pick six often. But I want to own Calumet Farm one day. That was my dream, to own Calumet Farm, to train off the farm on the training track, and to run my own horses from a private stable that I own.
But it's a different world today, okay? When I grew up in racing at Saratoga, okay, they were all homebreds in the maiden special weight races. They bred to race, okay? You couldn't buy in partnerships back then. You think that Calumet would be taking in partners on any of their horses against Buckland Farm, the Phipps, Rokeby Stable, all of the Nelson Bunker Hunt. You couldn't, there was no amount of money that could buy in for a tail. Those people, they bred to race and were competitive against each other. It was a completely different sport. Today we breed to sell. We don't really breed to race.
But that's so you have to have a broodmare pen. That's the point.
Yeah. But I love Calumet. Calumet was one of the powerhouse farms back then. So when people refer to Calumet today, oh, Calumet, to me, it's like some new farm that's just, you know, one of these farms of today. It's not Calumet like Calumet was. Owning that farm is great. I'll tell you another little thing that I don't know if it's true. I heard it was true from reliable people, but the woman who that Lundy guy married and was the heir to Calumet Farm, the last known whereabouts of her, and this is how tragic horse racing can be, and when they say it can make a billionaire a millionaire if you're not careful, it can do worse. I had heard from reliable sources, but I wasn't able to confirm it 100% because I wanted to write a story about it if I could confirm it, and I couldn't. But I heard that her last known whereabouts is she was working as a chambermaid at a Holiday Inn not far from Gulfstream Park, to Calumet Farm, which would totally be a tragedy. Not that you know, just to have that kind of wealth and the heir to that farm, and this one guy single-handedly destroyed it and you and everything that was built there is just a really, really sad story. That's been told a lot of times. You know, it has like no new story. But if that was true, it was really, wow. You know what I mean? Look where this poor woman wound up because of this guy. But she wound up better than poor Alydar did. You know, the story was they broke Alydar's leg in the stall, put it in the store door and broke it to collect the insurance money because he was already going down fast. So, you know, Calumet's got quite a history on the racetrack and, you know, from behind the scenes. And, you know, I'm glad it's back, but to me, it's not.
They bred a Derby winner. There they go. They're back on the scene. They bred a Derby winner.
The new Calumet bred a Derby winner. They got their own legacy now.
There we go.
I mean, they're rolling. That's, you know, something about that farm that's just, it's in a good spot, I guess.
It is. I think the horse gets so used to the traffic that the Derby doesn't faze him. You know, I look at these foals and I think, gosh.
The bluegrass at Calumet Farm is magical.
I think it has to do with the freeway that goes right past it. I think a lot of that, the foals are so desensitized from cars that when a horse runs up to them, they're not even concerned anymore.
They're racing the cars on the side of the road. Okay.
Exactly. They got more horsepower.
Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up now, unless you've got anything else. I think interesting show. We've got some Derby takeaways. We've got some Preakness things to look out for. I guess we'll be watching to see what Secret Oath does.
Let's ask this question, John. So let's
ask this. Maybe we can get Wayne on the show before the Preakness. How would that go?
Oh no, I think we could do that. Well, I'll see if I can talk to him. We'll see what we can get the coach to have a nice sit down with us. But I think it'd be so. I want to ask you from a perspective of seeing the race.
Okay.
Let's say the whole Derby field opts in, right? I know we're not going to see 20 horses in the Preakness, so we'll figure out who we throw out. But let's say the whole Derby field opts into the Preakness. After watching the Derby, how do you think the Preakness plays out?
Ooh, that's a tough question. How do I think the Preakness plays out? If the whole Derby field runs back, I think.
And everybody comes out, they're peaked, they're looking at, nobody's got, you know, everybody's just as good as they were going in.
I think we see a different winner. I think that the second and third place horses would be tough as nails right back. I think that the winner might not be in the money. I think he may just totally get a different kind of experience and a different kind of race thrown at him. And I would have to say that the second and third place finishes would clearly, in my mind, be the horses to beat. Smile Happy ran a sneaky good race behind the scenes without getting mentioned. I think he might be a little bit dangerous going forward as well at a little bit of a shorter distance. And he's a horse that, again, I didn't like going into the Derby, but I would certainly look at him going into the Preakness if he goes.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, you know, the question is the pace scenario, but I mean, speed kind of helps carry horses around that Pimlico racetrack. So
it certainly does, which would play against the filly Secret Oath, because she's a one run off the pace horse. It's an explosive run, but it's a one run off the pace, kind of move. So that track might play against her. I personally don't believe that Pimlico and the tight turns that it's known for having is as much of a feed favoring racetrack as it gets credit for being, and its reputation is. I think it's actually a very honest track, and you can win from anywhere over there, especially at 1 mile and 3/16. So I don't, as a handicapper and a bettor, put a lot of stock into that one particular theory about Pimlico. I think it's a bunch of nonsense, but that's just my opinion and my observation over.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of it comes down to when you start moving at Pimlico. I think that track tends to catapult horses that start moving mid-turn right into the stretch. And I think that's potentially why some of these front-running speed horses, quote unquote, get the jump and keep running on. I mean, we see it at Churchill and we do see it at Belmont, where if you move too soon, the last 16th, you're catching wind at some of these bigger tracks. I think Pimlico is one where when you move, you want to move. If you move at the right point, you're going to continue slingshot down the lane and finish up strong. So,
and I'm not being rude now. I'm just looking up the Preakness winners so I could see off memory how many of them came from off the pace. And this is telling me everything but what I want to know. Okay, here are the winners. Rambar off the pace. Swiss Skydiver off the pace. Early Move. War of Will off the pace. Justify on the lead. Cloud Computing off the pace. Exaggerator off the pace. American Pharaoh on the lead. California Chrome, I don't remember. Oxbow on the lead. I'll have another stalk. Shackleford on the lead. But you can see you've had both. Curlin off the pace. Big Brown on the lead. Rachel stalked. You could win from anywhere. You can win from anywhere. So, I don't think Pimlico is the speed highway that people, seem to think that it is. And again, it goes back to something I said at the beginning of the show. Any given first Saturday in May, any given second or third Saturday in May too. Pace and trip always has a major impact on these big races, and all races really, but especially on these big stake races. So we'll see. But I think 3 out of the Derby that I would have on my radar, no question about it, the 1-2 finishes, even though I don't think Zandon's going to run back, because Chad's got a new shooter, early voting, that he pointed for the Preakness. And you got to remember this, the last time Chad Brown did that, what did he do? He kept Cloud Computing out of the Derby, which was best for the horse, not quite ready, and needed that extra time, run him into Preakness and win it. Same exact thing he did with early voting. Jose Ortiz immediately took off Simplification to ride early voting. Simplification's already got a new rider. He gave that call right away to Chad. I don't think Jack Christopher's going to run back in 2 weeks in the Preakness, even though he certainly looked like he could do it and would win it. But Chad does what the horses tell him to do, and that's another horse that I think is going to be, talking about new shooters. If a new shooter is going to win the Derby, he did it with cloud computing. I think he's very, very possible that he can do it again. That horse has speed. You've got the 2 Japanese horses on a boat or plane back to Japan. He may be the one on the lead.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be an interesting group. I mean, you know, and going into the Derby, all these horses were peaking at the same time. And I think there's still, you know, it's a group of lightly raced 3-year-olds that are all starting to kind of come back up. I mean, Jack Christopher lightly raced last year, first win off a layoff, and now he's back in the mix. So it'll be interesting as the Preakness comes along, who shows up. And I think a lot of it comes down to who is going to show up for everybody to decide where they're going to go, you know.
Absolutely. One last observation that I had that I'll share. Irad Ortiz, great big money rider, really has developed into a big money rider. When the big days come, Breeders' Cup, Derby, Belmont, Travers Day, he puts on a game face. And if you're ever around a racetrack, which you are, and you watch him, you could see it in him. You could see, if you happen to get there at the racetrack at the same time as him and watch him walking from his car into the jock room, he's got a different game face on at the Breeders' Cup. I mean, he rides great all year long, don't get me wrong, but when those big days come, he is a big day rider. He just puts on his game face, he gets in that zone, and he just rides lights out. Sonny Leon doesn't have that kind of experience, okay? But he rode a heck of a race on Saturday. Here's an interesting observation that I made. Mo Donegal drew the rail, okay? He was a closer. The race was going to play into, I thought, you know, fast fractions, setting up a closer, play into his hands. Irad was very wide coming down the stretch from the 1 hole. I think, and again, I'm not questioning him or faulting him. He's a rider. If I had a horse, I would say, Irad, do what you think. He, I think, was worried about being trapped and pinned on the rail and said, you know what, let me get out of all of this trouble and make my run, and hopefully they go fast and I can make a run. And he wound up losing a lot of ground and being wide. Where Sonny said, you know what, I'm from the 21 hole, I tuck in and hopefully I could get through. He did. He went around Messier at the opportune time, or when he actually had to, and he saved the ground. And I think that made a big, big difference. What was your take on that aspect of the race and those 2 riders and how they rode it? And do you think I'm right in what I think about and what I thought Irad's mindset likely could have been in that race?
Yeah, and I think Todd might have mentioned it too. Is Mo Donegal seems like a horse that needs time to wind up, and I think if you impede his progress at all, it stops him. And so, you know, he's a horse that once he gets rolling, he's rolling. But if you go inside and you get stopped and checked, I don't know if he has that same acceleration to kick back into gear. And so I think Irad probably understood that and said, look, I got to get this horse rolling. I got to make sure he's not in trouble of getting in front of traffic. And I'm going to do that. What I saw from Sonny Leon, because he literally almost ran up on the heels of Messier, and then he just tilts his head out and the horse keeps going, is that horse gets rolling, but he's still fleet-footed enough to move around and maintain that momentum, where other horses that have a big windup, once they get stopped, and they might not re-break, you know.
I didn't hear what Todd said. And you want to know why?
Why?
I thought the NBC, well, first off, okay, I think the way they handle the TV coverage for the Derby is horrible. Okay, if you want to watch the whole card from morning till night from home, okay, you got to change the channel 3 times. You're on 3 different channels. Okay, that's ridiculous.
Maybe they need us on. I mean, maybe we should join NBC.
Maybe. Let me tell you, it'd be a lot better than the people they had on. No, I'm not disparaging anyone, but
I could wear a hat and a dress or a suit, whatever people want. Listen, be entertaining.
I don't know that they could pay me enough to wear a dress on national television. I'm not saying that they couldn't. I just don't know that they would meet my price. There's a price for everything.
Gotcha.
Mine's high for that. Here's my thing, okay? Some of the guys are good, know what they're talking about. Some don't. But I had to put it on mute because they got all these ridiculous stories. You got to change the channel 3 times to stay on the right channel. They block out the track feed from the racing network, which I think is criminal. I pay for the track feeds from every racetrack. The only day they block it out is Derby Day, which I don't understand why they do that. But they do. Okay, so they force you to watch NBC. Okay, instead of the track feed. They're not showing live odds. They're not showing will pays. They're not talking about the races leading up to the Derby, maybe 2 minutes. They're talking about the Derby all day long. What about the other races that are coming up? No coverage of that, no odds, no nothing. And then, so finally, I don't care who's cooking, who's eating what, who's having what for lunch. I don't want to watch that stuff. I'm a racing fan, okay? I'm a bettor. All right, this has no interest to racing, to bettors, okay? And that's a lot of the people that are watching this. I hate to tell these guys, but here's the thing. I got to put it on mute because it's hurting my ears. It's that bad, okay? So I put it on mute. I decide to take it off mute at one point. I take it off mute, and I don't even know who it is. Somebody told me afterwards it was Mike Tirico. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I know the voice, but I don't know whose voice it is. I put off and he goes, and the first thing I hear is Joel Rosario has everything on his resume but a Kentucky Derby. Will he get it today with Epicenter? You want to know what I did? Right back on mute. So it was off mute for 10 seconds. I took it off, but boom, mute, immediate mute to these guys. And I kept it on mute until the last horse was in the gate and I took it off and heard the call. And right afterwards was back on mute. So when I was watching the whole outrider incident, it was muted. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and I'm probably glad I didn't hear what they were saying. If they even said anything, they might not have even known what was going on because that's how oblivious they were to, you know, what was going on. So the coverage of the Derby, 3 thumbs down, 4, 5, whatever the maximum thumbs down you can get is what I give.
Well, Fox Sports has the Belmont, so we'll see. Maybe they do a much better job.
They're in the catbird seat, Fox Sports, and I'll tell you why. They can't do worse. It has to be an improvement, okay? It has to be. They cannot do any worse.
Right.
Hopefully, they keep it on Fox Sports all day long. Not, okay, first 3 are on Fox Sports 2, then switch to Fox Sports, then this one come back to Fox Sports 2, and then for the Belmont, we'll go back to Fox Sports. Put on one stupid channel, you know?
Gotcha. I hear you. The New Yorker in you's coming out, John.
Nah, listen, I don't think geography has anything to do with that. But you know, that's just me. The coverage, I got to give a big thumbs down. I like Jerry Bailey. I think he was one of the best riders ever to sit in the saddle. I don't know if they give him free rein or whatnot, but you know, I just thought they could make a lot better use of his knowledge and his talent than they do in the format that they have. If I was sitting there next to him, I could make that so interesting, get such information out of him that forget about it. You know what I mean? Randy Moss is not, you know, I heard he was a good handicapper back in his day and a pretty good bettor from some people who knew him at Oaklawn Park when I spent a couple of meets there. But I don't know him personally. I reached out to him once. He never even answered me to ask him a question. So I don't know, but he doesn't get out of Jerry what I think you can get.
I mean, you've got a Hall of Fame career. I mean, here's a guy that rode in how many derbies? I mean, you could ask him all these different questions. I mean,
not only that, listen, the best Derby ride, okay? If you go watch 25 rides, the best Derby ride that I've ever seen, okay? And I'm a pretty good judge of race riders, okay, is Grindstone. You watch Grindstone from start to finish in that Derby. I don't think any other rider wins that race other than Jerry.
Not Sonny Leon?
No, he wouldn't have won that race. I hate to say it. I mean, and not to take any, I don't think anybody would have won that race that day except Jerry.
No, that was a pretty incredible ride on Grindstone.
He hit every hole at the right time with precision, like threading a needle, the whole 1.25 miles. It was amazing. And then only win by a whisker.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's some of the rides he put in on horses were phenomenal. So hopefully NBC, you're watching this, to ask Jerry Bailey more questions, get more insight out of it.
Yeah, you got to pull that information out of him because he's a little, you know, tough to get information out of. But once you get him going, he'll tell you a lot of stuff. So anyway, always a pleasure. Next week we're gonna have some more Preakness stuff. We're gonna try and get Wayne Lucas on here. I don't know if we could pull it off. Michael's gonna try. We'll see if we could do it. He would be an interesting guy, and I promise you, I'll get a lot of information out of him. I made Paolo Lobo cry, you know that.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, and without any physical violence. It was all verbal, so don't anybody get the wrong idea. But I think Wayne would be a great guy to have.
No, I mean, I don't think there's anybody better to talk to than Wayne. So I will do my best, and I will track him down at Churchill and say, hey, you know, jump on camera, please.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. That would be fun. Okay, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another Unfiltered on Past the Wire TV, and ciao for now.
See ya.
Coming down to the finish. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is one stunning picture. Honorary Reeves pull out now, second on the outside. They're coming down the line. 1,000 words has done it.
Nobody does it better.